Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Today I'm going to give you guys a special treat. Christmas is coming up and I'm going to share with you one of my favorite desserts of all time. I love this as a kid. My mom always used to make it, and I've veganized her recipe and I want to share it with you. So I guess before we even get going, I'll just show it to you what it looks like. It's a nice little bun that looks kind of like this, very soft and gooey and sweet, and the way I've made it, actually not too unhealthy for you either, while still retaining flavor, and that's exactly kind of what I want to talk about. By the way, the name of this dessert in Hungarian is Ferdinánd, and basically, if the story is correct, at least this is what I know from my mom, it used to be the favorite dessert of Archduke Ferdinand. So basically the story is that this was his favorite pastry. So anyway, going back to this idea of flavor, I think the vegan version that I've made really nails the flavor exactly. I would challenge anybody to tell me otherwise. There's a lot of things I think where, I'll be honest, when I talk about foods and flavors and things like that, there's some things that to me, they don't, the vegan versions don't compare to the animal product based versions, and in the sense that, like, I can still tell the difference, and whether or not you prefer the taste, that can be argued, because to some extent taste is acquired. So whatever you eat, you actually become more accustomed to and you like it better. So, if I had spent, 38 years of my life eating vegan, and then all of a sudden I tried a meat version of something, maybe I would dislike that. But that's neither here nor there. My point is that you can actually get really close, or sometimes exactly the same taste, with a vegan option versus a quote-unquote traditional option. And that's what I want to focus the message here on, is that even if you can't get exactly, you can get really close. And people that are far more talented than I am, especially when it comes to baking, can usually do pretty amazing things. And I think to the point that most people won't notice the difference. And what I want to challenge you is that if you're preparing your Christmas meal, if you celebrate Christmas, if you're going to have friends and family over, try to do a vegan meal. Show some compassion and be conscious and conscientious, as I always say, about your meal choice. Is your taste pleasure really worth more than the life and death and suffering of an animal that has to go through, basically hell on earth to give you the product that you want, whether it's dairy or cheese or meat or eggs or whatever? And, my stance is that no, it's not. And if you're, talented, then you can certainly follow great recipes online. You can try out stuff. You can make your own. I've veganized this recipe, myself through just trial and error with the help of my wife. And I think it's come out great, So, really that's the crux of the message. In Hungary here, people do fish dishes a lot, or soups and stuff like that for Christmas. And it's really sad, I've been shopping, and whenever I go, past the supermarket parking lot, they've got a big stall out there, and there's live fish in a small, tiny tank, and you can see the fish are just in total distress. I mean, they're in a very small holding tank. They are still alive, but you can tell that they probably don't even have enough oxygen, because they're coming to the surface and they're gasping, and you can really tell they're suffering. And and I think fish are usually the kinds of things that actually seen some comments and videos just this last couple of days where people talk about fish and how a lot of people don't think of them as animals, and don't see them as being quite as capable of suffering as land-based animals. But I think it's just because you're not used to seeing them. But if you just see them and look at them in a tank like this, you'll really see that they are suffering just as much. So I just want everybody to consider what you're going to prepare for your holiday. It should be a holiday of loving, and I think let's extend that love and compassion towards all living sentient beings. You don't have to just limit it to your friends and family. Just like you can love people of another religion or creed or color or beliefs, you can do the same for animals, and just choose not to harm them. And it really is sometimes as easy as just choosing the plant-based milk versus the dairy from a cow. So yeah, just move your hand down the aisle and pick the other one. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I'm gonna sit down and enjoy this, and you guys can check out how to make it. Thanks for watching. Okay guys, so here's all the ingredients we need. Very basic, you don't need a whole lot of stuff. What you need is some flax seeds, basically as an egg replacer. You're going to grind those up in a coffee grinder. You need a little bit of vanilla. You need something for sweetness. I'm using agave syrup. You could use maple syrup or brown sugar or whatever you want. You need some flour. You need a little bit of coconut oil and your plant milk of choice. I've got oat milk here. You can use whatever you prefer. I really like the oat milk. And you need a little cube of yeast, or you can get the dry packets too. With this kind, it's the live variety. You need 20 grams of it. This is a 50-gram cube, so you need a little less than half. They actually have these little handy dandy markers here, but I usually just cut it in half or I make a double batch. But anyway, that's all you need. I'm going to show you guys the amounts and what you need to do in the next step. Alright guys, while you're measuring out your flour, what you can do is just put a little splash of milk on the stove just to get it lukewarm. You don't want it hot, just barely warm. Let's go measure the flour. Alright, so we have 450 grams of flour measured out here, and what I also have is the flax seeds now ground up. So what I did was I took 4 spoonfuls, like heaping spoonfuls like this size, ground them up, and what I'm gonna do is add about 15 spoonfuls, same spoon of water to this, and mix it up and let it sit for a little while, and I'll show you guys what that looks like. The milk should be ready. I'll show you what the next step is. Alright, so we've got the flaxseed in the water. You can see it's got this kind of like runny mixture, and that's going to be our egg replacer. We'll just let that sit to the side. You got your milk here, and I've cut the cube of yeast in half. And what I do is I just take out some of the flour from here, and you don't need much. I don't know, maybe like a couple spoonfuls is usually enough. And you just kind of dump it in here, get that mixed up a little bit, and then add your yeast and just work the whole mixture together. I'll show it to you in a second. Okay, so I've just added a little bit more flour because it was too runny. Basically, this is just to activate the yeast. You're going to start seeing these little air bubbles kind of forming. This, I think, was just really from mixing it, but you're going to let this sit for like a couple minutes, and you'll start seeing some bubbles forming, and the whole thing will start rising. That's when you know it's ready, and we're going to mix it back in here with the other ingredients. I'll show it to you next. Okay, it's only been about, I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes, but it looks like we're ready to go. You can see it's really kind of fluffy and yeah, like quite active. So we're going to combine the yeast with the flour, the milk, and the flax seeds with the water, with the flour that we have in here. And what we are going to do is add 1 or 2 spoonfuls, same kind of spoon sizes, of the agave, and a pinch of salt. We're going to mix that up and get our dough. I'm going to show you guys what it looks like in a bit. I also want to just show you how much the flax has thickened up, so you can see it's a lot more kind of, I don't know, whatever. It's not as runny as it was before, so it's just really a lot more absorbed and kind of solid. So we're going to dump that in there too. Okay, so I can't really mix it in the bowl anymore. I'm going to put it out on the counter, and I'm going to start kneading it by hand. I'll show it to you guys in a second. Okay, so I've kneaded it into a ball, and it's not time to panic, but it's a little bit dry. I'll show it to you guys. See how it's kind of like, it's really firm? This is a little bit too firm. You want a little more water. Don't add too much at once, because you might get it to be too thin, but I'll show it to you in a little bit. I'm just going to add a little bit of water, knead it, and I'll keep checking the consistency, and I'm going to show you what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so now it's ready. You can see it's a lot softer, and we're going to let this sit and rise. And while that's going, I'm going to preheat the oven to 200 200 Celsius, and I'm also going to show you the next step. Okay, so next steps are ready. I've lightly greased this pan with some coconut oil, And what I did was I put in 60 grams of coconut oil here, and I put in 3 spoonfuls of agave and a little splash of vanilla. So you can see how much is missing, not much. Yeah, I think my recipe actually says 2 to 3 spoonfuls of agave. I put in 3, but you know, to taste. Now what you're going to do is take a spoon, or if you want, you know, with beaters or whatever, and just kind of whip this together. I'll show that to you next. Sorry for the horrible lighting here. It's pretty late at night, so anyway, that's what it looks like. It's nice and evenly kind of mixed up, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, so we've had this off to the side covered so it doesn't get dried out, and you can see that it's risen really nicely. It's about double in size, really kind of soft and squishy. So this is ready to go. I'll show you what we need. Next, we are gonna basically put it back on the counter and flatten it out with our rolling pin, and I'll show that to you next. Alright, so I've lightly floured the countertop. I'm gonna flour the rolling pin, and I'm gonna roll out the dough here and just kind of stretch it out to, I don't know, maybe about like a pinky's thickness or a little less, and I'll show that to you next. Okay, so I lied. It's a lot thinner than a pinky's width, but you can see, I don't know, maybe half a pinky's width. It's about what I tried to go for. And what I'm going to do now is take the coconut, agave, and vanilla mixture, and we're going to spread it out across the whole thing. I'll show that to you next. Alright, so we've got the whole thing covered. And now comes the fun part. You're going to cut it into strips, probably about, I don't know, maybe like whatever that is, 1.5 to 2-inch thick strips, and just kind of cut across. I use a trusty, very dull knife so I don't destroy the countertop. I'm going to show you guys once it's sliced up what you do next. Alright, so they're all sliced across, and I've cut it in half roughly, except for this last piece because I didn't want it to be too short. And now what you're going to do is just kind of start on one end and just roll it into a little ball. I'm going to show it to you. Hopefully I can do this with one hand. Just kind of start from one end and just keep rolling across until you got this nice little roll going like that. Alright, and you're going to do this with all of them and then set them in the greased pan. I'll show it to you next. So there they are, and this pan size is not ideal. I probably should have just used the one size smaller pan that we have, but anyway, I think it's going to be okay. You don't want them touching. You want to leave a little bit of space, but you don't want them super far apart because then they'll start getting kind of dried out on the edges. But I think this should be okay. So I'm going to put them in the oven and give it at least a good 15 minutes or so, and then I'll check on them. You want them to be kind of nice and golden brown at the top, and I'll show you the next step. Okay, while the pastries are going in the oven, this is the last thing that we need to work on, is 2 deciliters of milk, 2 spoonfuls of agave. You're going to bring this to a low simmer and just, you know, basically set it to the side and wait until the pastries are ready, and then I'll show you what you do with this. Alright, so that's been about 12 minutes, and they're looking really nice. And now all you need to do is take some of the milk that you got with the agave here, and basically just kind of drizzle it on here. And you go across, do all of them, and should be just about the right amount. I guess if you wanted to, you could just pour it on there if you're careful enough. But you want to just kind of drip it there and then into the middle of each one. And that's going to give it some extra sweetness and give it kind of a nice consistency and texture in the middle. A little bit kind of gooey, which I really like. And yeah, it's kind of like a big thing of this dessert, the way it kind of comes out. So yeah, I'm going to just kind of go across, do all of them, throw it back in the oven, and then you give it like another maybe 5 minutes or so, and I'll show it to you when it's fully done. Alright, so I've taken them out. I may have gone a little overboard with the milk, guys, so maybe just do a little bit less than what I showed you. But don't worry, all of that will get kind of absorbed into the pastries. And yeah, you can eat these hot. They're probably just as tasty cold, though. I actually really enjoy eating them like the next morning. And that's what I will show you because it is really late tonight. And yeah, I'll show this to you tomorrow in hopefully better light and let you know how they came out. Alright, so last night the missus and I couldn't resist. We ate a couple. but you can see what they look like now in the brighter light of morning, and yeah, they came out great. So yeah, the little milk at the bottom did get absorbed, like I said, and you know, that's what it looks like in the bottom. Super kind of this gooey, kind of nice sugary mess, and it's like a, I don't know, really light fluffy pastry. You can see it, it's really soft, and you can kind of start kind of unrolling it if you want. It's really nice. You can actually do variations of this. Obviously you can make it more of like a cinnamon bun if you wanted to. You can just add like cinnamon to that mixture that you kind of spread across the top. Or what my kids like is we do like cocoa powder with like a sugary cocoa powder and spread that. So those are some variations, but you can have fun with it, do whatever you want. You can obviously add things to the dough if you wanted to add some like you know, ground walnuts or something else. But this is the plain kind of traditional version, and we love it. It's super easy, really quick to make, and comes out really tasty. So yeah, it goes well for breakfast, dessert, you know, whatever. And hope you enjoyed that. So yeah, if you did enjoy this, remember to give it a big thumbs up, share, and remember to subscribe. Thanks to everybody who has subscribed already. Really appreciate that. And yeah, see you in the next one. Bye.